Hello and welcome to one and all. In my previous class, I explained to you about the analysis of microeconomics. What is the subject matter of microeconomics? But it was found out that in order to analyze or solve the problems of the country as a whole, it is not correct to study from the individual point of view. What is microeconomics? I explained to you that microeconomics studies about the economic actions of individuals or groups of individuals. So it was analyzed from the individual point of view. But if any problem is affecting the entire country, it is not sufficient to analyze from the individual point of view. So actually, there were two reasons the microeconomics found to be wanting. One was that there was a Great Depression, which happened in 1930s. Okay, so the Great Depression, it was like, there is a total economic crisis. It just not affected only one country, it almost affected the entire world. Okay, so the Great Depression is like the prices fall down, the incomes fall down, there will be too much of unemployment, overproduction of goods in the market. So it was a total disaster. Okay, so the Great Depression, which affected not just only one individual, which the microeconomic analysis is studying about, it affected the entire country, and it affected almost the entire world. It passed on from one country to another country, and it almost affected the entire world. Okay, and then simultaneously, the second reason was the publication of book by J.M. Lord Keynes. So J.M. Keynes. So he published a book in the year 1936 during the same period of time, which is known as the General Theory of Employment, Interest, and Money. So this was the book published by J.M. Keynes in 1936. So in this book, Keynes proved that it is not correct, it is not sufficient to analyze the economic problems from the individual point of view. It is necessary to study the country as a whole. So because of this, the macroeconomic analysis became popular. Okay, so this is the beginning of the macroeconomic analysis. So now let us see what is the origin of the word macroeconomics and what are all the things macroeconomics studies about. Okay, so the word macroeconomics or macro derived from the Greek word macros. This means large. Okay, micro means small, macro means large, or in other words, macroeconomics studies about the economy as a whole. Macroeconomics studies about or analyzes about the economy as a whole. So like for example, it studies about the total national income of the country, the total demand and supply of the country, the total consumption and savings of the country. Okay, like that, everything is analyzed in aggregates and total, not like the microeconomics, which studies only about the individual income, only the individual prices, only the individual savings, only the individual consumption. That is the microeconomic analysis scope of study. But then macroeconomics, everything is aggregated here. So it studies, as I mentioned, it studies about the total national income, the general price level, total demand and supply. So everything is analyzed on a macro level. So if I put the definition, you'll be able to understand the concept better. So this is the definition given by Mr. K.E. Boulding. So according to K.E. Boulding, inverted commas, Macroeconomics studies national income, not individual income. So individual income is studied under the microeconomic analysis. But then macroeconomics studies about the total national income of the country. And then it studies about the general price level. So the average price level of all the goods and services in the country. That is the meaning of general price level. Microeconomics studies about only one individual price of only one individual commodity or service. That's the analysis of microeconomics. But macroeconomics takes into account the average price level of all the goods and services in the economy. That is what is called as the general price level. Okay. And then general price level instead of individual prices and national output, that is the total output of all the goods and services in the country, the total output produced by all the firms or companies in the country. That is what is called as the national output. Alternatively, microeconomics studies about only the individual output, the output produced by only one single firm. That's why instead of individual output. So now you can see that very clearly it is mentioned. Everything is studied in total here. So that's why macroeconomics analyzes or studies about the economy as a whole. See, this is economy as a whole have got so many problems. For example, you take national income, I said. So to total income, studies about the national income. So there is a problem of rise in the national income of any country, isn't it? The national income of a country should keep on increasing. It should not be stagnant. So then if you have to know about whether the national income of a country is increasing or not, then there is no point in studying the individual income. Okay. Then, for example, general price level. If we have to know whether there is inflation in the country, the prices are continuously rising for almost all the goods and services. That is what we call it as inflation. So when want to know about the inflation or deflation of a country, both are the extreme form of both inflation as well as deflation is not good for any country. So if you have to study about the inflation or deflation, then it is not useful to study the rise or fall in price of one individual commodity or service. We have to analyze, we have to know about the total or the general price level of a country. Okay. So we have to know about the total output of a country, not the individual output. And apart from that, there are so many problems affecting almost each and every country, isn't it? It is in the form of unemployment, it is in the form of poverty, it is in the form of income inequalities, isn't it? So there are so many problems affecting almost all the country. So in order to provide the solutions for all those problems, we have to analyze those problems. So in order to analyze the problem, it is necessary to study all those problems at the macro level, or it is necessary to study all those problems at the country as a whole level. So it is not, it is not sufficient to study from the micro level. Maybe one individual producer might be making profit, okay? But then the majority of the producers might be suffering losses. So then what is the point here, studying only about one individual producer? So that's why macroeconomic provides a better solution to the problems faced by the country as a whole than the microeconomic analysis. So this was proved during the Great Depression. So the Great Depression, as I mentioned, the country as a whole suffered, and which spread to the other countries also. So the microeconomics was not at all helping to solve all those problems, to know about the reason for all those problems. So Keynes in this way proved that macroeconomics is more useful and it is not microeconomics. So from that time onwards, macroeconomics became popular. Okay. Now let us see what are all the subject matters that are covered under macroeconomics. Scope and subject matter of macroeconomics. Okay. So the first subject matter that is covered under macroeconomic analysis is, it is the theory of income and employment. So the theory of income and employment here, it is not just the individual income, national income. Here it is not the employment of one individual company, or it is the total employment of a country. Okay. So the first subject matter that is analyzed under is macroeconomics is a theory of income and employment. That is, on what are all the factors on which the level of employment and the level of national income of a country is depending. Okay. So now employment depends upon production, isn't it? More the production, more the employment. So if the employment depends on production, and production depends on what? If the producer has to produce a certain commodity, only if there is a demand for that particular commodity, he will start producing those commodities, isn't it? If there is no demand for that commodity, he will not produce those particular commodity. So when you're talking about the production of the all the goods and services in the country, then you have to know about the total demand for the all the goods and services in the country. So employment depends upon production, production depends upon the demand for goods, and broadly the demand for goods is divided into demand for consumer goods and demand for capital or investment goods. Okay. So if the demand for consumer goods and demand for all the goods all the demand can be categorized into these two divisions. Okay. There is one more sector, of course, government, which I will explain to you later. Later you have a separate topic about this employment. So in that I will explain to you detailedly. Okay. So for the time being, the total demand for all the goods and services can be divided into two parts. That is, demand for consumption goods. So we'll analyze the what are the factors that affect the demand for consumption goods and demand for investment goods. So in other words, C plus I. Okay, capital C here. So if the demand for consumption goods and the demand for investment goods increases, then automatically the production in the country increases. So if the production in the country increases, automatically the employment level in the country will increase. If the employment level in the country increases, automatically the national income of the country will also increase. If the production increases, national income. Now, the term for national income is the total output, national output. Output is what? The production of goods and services. So if the production of goods and services increase, automatically the total national output or the total national income will also increase. Or in other words, Keynes mentioned that the employment level in a country depends upon the demand for consumption goods and the demand for investment goods. But the microeconomic analysis, if you remember, they mention assumptions. They assume that country will always be under the condition of full employment. Based on that assumption, all the laws of economics under microeconomic was propagated by all the microeconomists. Okay. But then the Great Depression proved that the country is not having the full employment. Unemployment is the common thing. Okay. So in order to increase the level of employment in a country, then we should increase the demand for consumer goods and it should increase the demand for investment goods. How to increase the demand? So that depends on so many factors. So those topics are covered in the theory of income and employment, which includes the theory of consumption and the theory of investment. So that is the first topic covered under macroeconomics. And then the next one is the theory of general price level. So the general, I told you what is the meaning of general price level. It is the average of all prices of all the goods and services in the country. Then we will arrive at the general price level. Most of the time, the general price level in any country, it will not remain stable. There will always be fluctuations. There will always be ups and downs in the general price level of a country. So if it fluctuates, it can either be inflation, so that is ups in general price level, or it can be deflation. Okay, so it is either inflation or deflation. So it is a downs. So this is this fluctuation. So these fluctuations frequently in any country is not good for this development of the country. The country should be more or less stable. So if there is a frequent ups and downs in the general price level of a country, then the country will not grow properly. So then in the macroeconomic analysis, it is analyzed why these fluctuations are caused. What are the reasons for the frequent occurrence of inflation or deflation in a country? So that topic is covered under the macroeconomic analysis. So next one is the theory of business cycles. So this is same thing, inflation and deflation. Business cycles is that the business also keeps on fluctuating. It goes up and down. If as the I just mentioned to you, the prices goes ups and downs. So if this should be the price level in the country, this is the average price level. This is the on an average, the price level should be at this level. It should neither be too high, it should not be, nor it should be too low. This is the correct price level of the country. But just now I mentioned the price level in any country will not remain constant. It will just go up and down. It keeps on fluctuating. So now if the prices goes up, increases, automatically the business will also increase. Okay. So and then this point is inflation. And then once it reaches the peak point, then the price starts decreasing. Along with it, the business starts decreasing. The growth of the economy starts decreasing. So it reaches the bottommost part. This is deflation or depression. This is what happened in 1930s. In between period is called as the recession, when the price level starts decreasing in between before it reaches the depression point. That is called as recession. Okay. And then once it reaches the rock bottom, then again it goes up and down. So along with the movement of prices up and down, the business in the country will also go up and down. The incomes of the people will also go up and down. The employment in the country will also go up and down. This is what is called, and it is in cycle. It goes up and down. That's why it is called as a cycle. Okay. So now too much of business cycles. If the country's business goes up and down like this very frequently, then again the stability of the country will be affected. So the country again will not be able to grow properly. So that is also not good for the country. So in macroeconomic analysis, what are all the reasons for this frequent occurrences of business cycles? So those challenges are also studied, and of course, automatically solutions are also provided. Okay, so that is the next topic covered under macroeconomics. And the next one is the theory of economic growth. So that is one of the basic problems, goals of each and every country, isn't it? So when I say economic growth, what are all the things that are included in there? If the economy has to develop, for example, there should be a continuous rise in national income. Okay. And then there should be a reduction in everything, all those problems facing the country. There should be a reduction in poverty. There should be a reduction in unemployment. There should be a reduction in income inequalities. All those problems plaguing each and every economy, all those should be checked. Okay. If the country is increasing the national income, but simultaneously unemployment is also increasing, simultaneously poverty is also increasing, simultaneously income inequalities is also increasing, then that is not the correct way of development. So if you are studying about the economic growth of a country, all these factors should also be checked, and all these factors should be analyzed from the macro point of view, that is the country as a whole. So if you have to study about the rise in national income, you cannot analyze the individual income. You have to analyze about the income of the entire country, isn't it? So that is the next topic. And then the last one here is, one more topic covered here is macro theories of distribution. I already mentioned to you before, distribution means sharing of reward among the four factors of production. The producer is producing a certain commodity. After selling the commodity in the market, is receiving a certain amount of revenue. So whatever the revenue he has received after selling the commodity, he has to distribute that revenue to the landlord. He has to give whatever the rent he has to pay. Then whatever, how many staff members, laborers he has employed, he has to pay the wages accordingly. Then if he has borrowed loan from bank or any capitalist, then he has to pay the interest. And then whatever the leftover is the profit for the producer. So in this way, the revenue earned by a firm is distributed in the form of rent, wages, interest, and profit. Or alternatively, if you add all the rent, wages, and interest and profit, you will get the total revenue of the particular company. So this is from the micro point of view, only one individual producer, how he distributes his revenue. Now, when you are talking about the macro theories of distribution, here the revenue is the total national income. So the total national income earned in any particular country in a year must be distributed in the form of the total rent. All the landlords, they receive rent. And then all the laborers, they receive wages. That is the total wages. All the capitalists of the country, they receive the total interest. And finally, whatever is left over is the total profit for all the producers in the country. Okay. Now, this is how the national income of the country is distributed. This is the macro theories of distribution. So, from national income to, if we distributed like this is national income is distributed in the form of rent, wages, interest, and profit. The other way, you add all this rent, wages, interest, and profit of the entire country, then you will arrive at the national income of the country. So from this uh, concept, we will know whether the income of the country, the national income of the country, is evenly distributed or unevenly distributed. So you will know how much percentage of national income is accruing to the landlords in the form of rent. You will know how much percentage is accruing to the laborers in the form of wages. To put it very simply, suppose if we find out that 60% of the national income is accruing in the form of wages to all the laborers in the country, only the remaining 40% is accruing in the form of rent, interest, and profit. Then you can say that the more or less the national income of the country is evenly distributed. But if it is the other way around, only 40% or 20% is accrued to the laborers in the form of wages. The remaining 80% is shared by the landlords, producers, and the capitalists. Then you can say that the national income of the country is unevenly distributed. Okay, so we will know how the national income of the country is distributed, and we will also be able to find out whether the national income of the country is evenly distributed or unevenly distributed. So this is the another subject matter studied under macroeconomics. So now you can understand that what is the importance of macroeconomics, and it is trying to solve the problems of economic growth. It is all the major problems affecting the country are can be analyzed with the knowledge of macroeconomics. It helps to analyze about the fluctuations in the general price level. It helps to uh, increase the level of employment by having a knowledge of what is the demand for consumption goods, what is the demand for investment goods, etc. Okay, so this is the subject matter of macroeconomics. Okay, now this, as I mentioned, macroeconomics, already I mentioned to you what is the name of the book published by Keynes, General Theory of Employment, Interest, and Money. Is all another name for macroeconomics is it is also called as General Theory or Income and Employment Theory. And macroeconomics is a general equilibrium analysis. I mentioned to you, microeconomics is a partial equilibrium analysis. It analyzes the equilibrium position of only individual. But here, macroeconomics analyzes the equilibrium position of all the sectors in the country simultaneously. That's why it is called as the general equilibrium analysis. And I already mentioned to you, with the publication of Keynes' book, macroeconomics became popular. So macroeconomics is popularized or was popularized by J.M. Keynes. So with this, Marshall's microeconomics assume lesser importance compared to the Keynes macroeconomic analysis. And for your information, Keynes was the student of Marshall, and still he pointed out the defects of microeconomic analysis and proved the macroeconomic analysis is more useful. Okay. So just only one, this is about the macroeconomic analysis. And then just only one small topic is left over in the subject matter or nature and scope of economics. Whether we already mentioned whether economics is science or an art. I already explained to you. The same way, there is one more thing called as the whether economics is a positive science or whether economics is a normative science. I gave a brief explanation. What is the meaning of economics as a science and economics as an art? I mentioned to you, economics as a science just mentioned what the facts are as it is, and economics as an art, not just the facts as it is, and it for the practical application and providing the solution. The same thing here. Economics as a science, as a we are representing economics as a positive science. So if you say that economics as a science, positive science, then it just tells the facts as it is, that is what it is. I gave you one example, overpopulation leads to poverty. That's all. This is the cause and this is the effect. That's what the positive science analyzes and tells about. But whereas the normative science tells that what, not only what it is, what it ought to be, or in other words, what it should be. So what does it say? It is overpopulation leads to poverty, and then poverty, then the suggestions also, poverty is not good, what the country has to do. So all those suggestions are also given under normative science, isn't it? That's once I mentioned to you, norm means prescribing the standards. So poverty is not the correct thing, isn't it? So that is the normative science. And I explained to you once, if a consumer is having a limited amount of money income, he can either spend for milk or for liquor. But positive science will say that if you have a limited money income, you can spend on milk or liquor. It's your problem. Okay. But normative science will say you should spend only on milk. So liquor is not good. You have only a very limited resources. You should not spend it on milk. And that's why. So going by the same thing, positive science, no value judgments. This is good, this is wrong. The judgment is not there. Or in other words, there are no ethical considerations in the analysis of economics as a positive science. No ethical considerations. But here, value judgments are given. Ethical considerations are given due importance. Okay. So milk is, you have a limited money income, you don't spend on liquor. Okay. It's harmful for your health. Those kind of value judgments are made under the normative science. And this Lionel Robbins, he was the economist who favored the economics as a positive science. According to him, economists, this is his motto, economists should be neutral between ends. Neutral means they are in the middle. They are not saying liquor is bad and milk is good. No partiality here. That's why economy should be neutral between ends. Ends here, the wants of the human beings. This is the Lionel Robbins' opinion. But this one, according to Marshall and other economy like McFay, Joan Robinson and all, economists should not be neutral between ends. So they are of the opinion should not be neutral between, sorry, between ends. Okay, so this is the difference between positive and normative science. But finally, you can understand that economics is both the positive science as well as a normative science. Economics is a science as well as an art, and economics is also a positive science as well as a normative science. Okay, so with this, we finish the nature and scope subject matter of economics, including the micro and macroeconomics. Just one more topic is left over in the first unit. So you will have to know the basic concepts of certain terms used in economics. We will be using in the ordinary language in a different way. In economically, we will be using it in a different way. So before we proceed with the syllabus of economics subject which is prescribed for you, you should know what are all the basic terms represent in economics, which I will explain to you in my next class. Okay, so hope this topic is clear to all of you. If you have any doubts, please mention it in the comment box. Your suggestions are also most welcome. And if you find this video useful, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. So until my next video, take care. Bye bye.